Red Glass by Laura Rousseau, Chapter 15. Heavy things, sharp things, blood. At sunset, Pablo and I walked through the empty streets toward the village chapel. It was perched on the top of a hill, a 45-degree incline that left me breathless. Pablo darted back and forth between me and the turkeys pecking at the roadside. He had a special bond with all fowl, it turned out. Somehow he could distinguish one turkey from another, even though they all looked alike to me. "Do you know how lucky you were to end up with a family in downtown Tucson who has chickens?" I asked. He nodded. "It's a sign," I said. Mom had told me not to pressure him, so I just repeated, looking straight at him, "It's a sign, Pablito." We reached the top of the hill, paused to catch our breath. Abuelita used to come here every morning at dawn to pray for Pablo. Now Pablo had asked me to come with him to pray for Mr. Lorenzo and Angel. Pablo wanted to pray to the Virgin, too. Talk to his mother and father through her. I like the idea. Closure, wasn't that what it was called? To say goodbye and move on with life? We stepped into the church's cool shadows and let our eyes adjust to the darkness. In an alcove near the altar was La Virgen de Nieves, the Virgin of Snows, which was a strange name because it never snowed here. She wore a white lacy dress shaped like an upside-down cone and a sky blue veil with silver glitter and flower patterns. The aunt said that this church was built on top of a sacred Mixtec site for Cosio, the god of the waters. I imagined people trekking up the hill to thank him for rain and ask for more rain until sometime after the Spaniards came, when the god was forgotten, his water freezing into tiny crystals of snow. Now the Virgin of Snows had replaced him, and maybe someday she would transform and become water again. The substance was the same, the form different. The church was empty, except for one woman praying in the third pew. Pablo and I tried to walk quietly, but our footsteps echoed off the stone walls. The eyes of the statues of saints seemed to follow us. Each had its collection of candles, firelight flickering over their faces, animating their eyes. Pablo held a little paper bag of candles we'd bought. "Go ahead," I whispered. "Light one, Pablito." "This one's for Mama, and this one's for Papa," Pablo said solemnly in Spanish. "Now, this one's for Angel, and this one's for Mr. Lorenzo." With the flames of other candles, he lit his candles, melted their bases, and placed them in the pools of wax, his mouth half open in concentration. Then he knelt again and folded his hands in front of his chest. I said a vague, silent prayer for Angel to be safe and come back to me. I had never prayed to a virgin before, but virgins and spirits were important to Pablo and Angel. The midwife who delivered Angel had told him that if you need something done fast, the best strategy is to pray to the Virgin. She tells her son what to do, and Jesus does it. That's the chain of command. Mothers have the real power. I imagined the Holy Mother hearing my prayer and nagging Jesus about it over dinner in heaven. "Have you been protecting Angel? You better get on that, son." I sat on a bench 2 rows behind the woman. Pablo was still kneeling in front of the virgins, his lips moving, his hands crossing his forehead, his chest, his mouth. When he finished, we left the darkness of the church through huge wooden doors. The sky had gone from pale golden to the hues of blackberry and cherry and mango, all melting into one another. Pablo had stored up energy to burn after being quiet in a church for 15 minutes. He ran into the weedy graveyard and raced around the gravestones decorated with plastic soda bottles cut in half and filled with red carnations. Turkeys meandered around the wooden crosses, pecking at offerings of food that had been left there. He wove in and out of their paths while they eyed him cautiously at first, then went about their business. Finally, he circled back to me. "Sophie, guess what?" "What?" "I told my mother the poem." "What poem?" I tell her, 'Mama, I carry your heart in my heart.'" Then he switched to Spanish. "Mira, watch how fast I can run, Sophie." He ran down the hill, his little legs moving impossibly fast, his arms flailing over his head, his mouth in a wide-open smile, calling out, "Yeah!" until his voice faded and he was a faraway splotch of red. They were supposed to be back Monday morning. 1 week. That's what they'd said. On Sunday, I washed all my clothes in the cement basin outside. On Monday, I put on the white cotton sundress and the coconut necklace and bracelet. I brushed my hair and braided it carefully in 2 braids. By sunset, they still hadn't come. Dirt smudges and salsa stains flecked my dress. I'd been preparing for the idea that Angel wouldn't come back, but I thought at least Mr. Lorenzo would. Unless they found Angel's mother. "Oh, mi amor, how I miss him. How worried I am." Dika moaned in Spanish over coffee and sweet rolls Monday night. "Something probably held them up," I said, unconvinced. "I'm sure they'll be here tomorrow." Dika nodded. "Perhaps they missed the bus." Before bed, I washed the white dress. As I hung it on the clothesline to dry for the next day, Pablo came out with his toothbrush and toothpaste. He neatly squeezed out the toothpaste, the all-natural stuff that Mom always got, and began brushing. His mouth overflowing with foam, he asks, "Are you sad again, Sophie?" He spoke in Spanish. "Yup." I tried to ruffle his hair, but he squirmed away. Lately, he seemed to be getting vain about his hair. Some of his cousins wore hair gel already, and they weren't much older than Pablo. "You know, Principito, you should be speaking English to keep in practice for school." He shrugged and asked me in Spanish, "Why are you sad?" "Because I miss Angel, and I don't know if he's coming back." "Why don't you go get him?" Toothpaste was dribbling from his chin onto his shirt, but he looked so serious I didn't mention it. "I can't." He spit out his toothpaste and scooped a cupful of water from the cistern. I tried to make him use purified water, but he insisted this was how he'd always done it. He swished it in his mouth and spit onto the mud, then wiped his sleeve over his face. "Why not?" I don't know. Maybe he doesn't want to see me. And it's far away. Man, I've never gone somewhere like that alone." I twisted my ring around my finger, the moonstone and silver that Mom and Juan had given me for my 15th birthday, along with my E. Cummings book of poetry. That night I'd underlined, "And it's you are whatever a moon has always meant." And I thought, someday I'll discover the one to tell this to. Pablo looked thoughtful, as though he was considering something, all of the angles of my answer. Finally he said, "But you're a big person." "Well, sort of." "So? You can do anything." Tuesday morning and afternoon passed without even a phone call. Dika was fretting. She was sure something must have happened, that a thief had hijacked their bus and killed them, that they'd gotten into an accident or been kidnapped. That night, I climbed up the trail in my dirty dress past the outhouse and stood next to the Queen of the Night. It smelled strong. Something about the darkness released a mysterious, sweet scent. I let myself cry for a while. When I was little and felt sad, Juan would put his arm around me and tell me one of his tales. It always made me feel better hearing how the scrawny heroine gets swallowed by some creature like an elephant or wolf or whale, and then right when she thinks all is lost, she discovers that the creature's gut is actually a passage to another world. Instead of dying in the belly of the whale, she's reborn. And this time there's nothing scrawny about her. I took another whiff of the flower, then walked down the path to wash my dress again in the dark. Wednesday morning, I still clung to some hope. I put on the sundress, now clean and white again, and braided my hair. Embarrassingly, Dika was primping herself too. She had grown louder in her panic as I had grown quieter. "Donde están?" she screeched at breakfast on Wednesday. Where are they? She threw her spoon on the table. "I have had it! I am going to Guatemala to find them." "Tranquila, comadre," Abuelita murmured. But Dika did not get tranquil. You could almost see smoke shooting out of her ears. "I am going to get them!" "But Dika," I said, "they said it was dangerous, remember?" "Danger? Don't talk to me about danger. I have been in danger, and now I am scared of nothing." She ripped into a roll with her teeth. "Dika, listen." There was no easy way to say this. "Maybe they don't want to see us. Maybe they want to stay." "Ha!" she snorted. "You know very little of men." She was quiet after that. Only the crackle of the hearth fire in the corner, the muffled squawking of chickens outside. There was an insecurity in her eyes, and she didn't start packing. Wednesday night I couldn't sleep. Dika couldn't either. Neither could Abuelita, probably because of all our turning over, sighing, adjusting the covers. Even Nola was murmuring more than usual in her sleep. I whispered across the room to Dika. "Maybe you're right. Maybe they at least would have called us. Maybe something happened." "I asked to my comadre," she said, propping up on her elbow. "Psst! Comadre!" she called, her face a few inches from Abuelita's. Abuelita opened her eyes. She didn't seem startled to see Dika's face looming so close. "¿Qué pasa, comadre?" "We are worried about mi amor and his son." Abuelita heaved herself off the mattress and turned on the bare light bulb. She buried her head in a crate of fabric scraps and clothes and came up with a small box, smaller than Angel's and made of old dented tin. She cleared the wooden table and spread out a white cloth, just as she had done for the Limpia. "Bring the chairs around," she said. She lit candles inside glasses and put them on the table and turned off the light. She opened the box and poured out a tiny heap of dried corn kernels. She looked at them with reverence. "The corn will tell me why the men aren't back yet." She scattered the kernels, praying, moving her lips in the flickering candlelight. She studied the corn as though it were a book. Dika whispered to me, "See how smart is this lady, my comadre." "Shh," I told her. Abuelita was silent now, watching the kernels. Finally, she spoke in a grave voice. "Glass. There is green glass, brown glass." "The jewels?" Dika said. "Maybe they found them?" "There is wood and metal too. Heavy things, sharp things, blood."